1.5 billion turnover company in the US to a two-man startup locally. I get to interact daily with those companies, new product development, new partnerships, how we work together, setting up sales channels, etc. And all of the things that encompass those roles. So a real breadth of different businesses and different size businesses. So a little bit about Focus SB. I know that some of you know who we are and about us. We are an established British brand. We manufacture high quality electrical accessories aimed at the high-end luxury market. Your typical customers and clients of ours, where these are fitted, are 5-star hotel refurbishments, new builds, high-end luxury residential, private yachts, etc. All of our products are handmade here in the UK, and we've journeyed into automation to complement that. They're specified, our products, then the end client generally doesn't specify them. They're specified into the projects by interior architects, interior designers, etc., who will look at your product that close as opposed to in situ on a wall where you traditionally have a switch or socket. So, there we are. So, some USPs of our business to give a bit of background before we go into the automation. All of our products are handmade. They have elements of handmade in every single product, whether that's hand assembled, hand cut, hand finished. That is a genuine photo of how some of the finishes are applied in our products, with brushes, with chemical stains, oxidization processes, etc. And it's important to remember that that is a USP of our business, because that is something you can't automate. You can't automate the artisan skill of someone putting those finishes on the plates. You're not paying for our products. You're not paying for a product that is made in a factory in China that's 5p and looks the same every time. It's a very different type of product. And agility, product design, and speed to market. So when I talk about product design, we sell 17,000 individual SKUs on light switches and sockets every year. You generally think we have a switch or a socket. We have the ability to custom make. So if you go into hotel rooms, you see bedside panels with power, lighting, USB charging, etc. All of the different combinations above. That is a USP of our business. This individual we'll make from 1 to 10,000 of. And because we're an SME, we're small and agile compared to a lot of the major manufacturers. We can turn things around a lot quicker than, say, a big multi-corporate that may take a year to go through a design development process for one product and bring it to market. So it's important to remember the USPs. And I'll go back. I want people to focus on that image, pardon the pun, because it will become quite prominent later in the presentation. So I think it's important to understand, and for us as a business, it was important to understand what automation is before you start looking at implementing it in your business, and that's what we've done. So if we look at a dictionary definition, the use of methods of controlling industrial processes automatically, especially by electronically controlled systems, often reducing manpower. In essence, machines instead of manpower doing tasks. And that's what you generally think of in the manufacturing as automation. However, we all have access to use of automation daily in our lives, whether we know it or not, or whether we realise that we have or don't. Everybody uses it already, and I'm sure everybody in this room who has a phone already uses it. It's important for the journey for us to understand how technology plays a part in this, and IBM define automation as the use of technology to perform tasks with minimal human input. And the point there is minimal human input. There is still human input in automation. And it's very clear to us when we started our journey that when we were talking to our staff about implementing automation in our factory, that it was not replacing people. It was not replacing the skills that those people have. It was complementing those skills. And the reason for that is that you need to gain buy-in from the staff that you're using to complement these machines. and you need to keep and retain the skills. The machines have to be programmed, the machines have to learn from the people that are doing the tasks. So I said everybody uses it in daily life. Everybody here, I'm sure, has used Excel. Everybody's used email, manufacturing, CAD drawings. Certainly when I was at school and started, none of this was around. You had to do it all manually. You had to learn technical drawing at school. Now you don't need to learn it. You can, in that sense, you can learn it on paper. You can do it on a computer screen. It'll do that. It'll dimension it all for you, etc. And there's just some example. Even the basic answer phone is automation in reality. So why did Focus SP decide to implement automation in production? It's a good question. We go back to our vision as a business. Our vision as a business is to be the #1 luxury manufacturer of choice for wire and accessories, for bespoke wire and accessories for the top end of the market. So that means that all of our products have to be the best quality they could possibly be, with the best materials and produced in the best time to secure projects. Hand making products is notoriously a long process, but it's a long process that can be helped along the way with automation, and it can be helped along the way by taking out tasks that you want your skilled workers not to focus on. You want to focus on the value add. And going back to one that I think Tom was saying earlier, there was 3 triangles, that high value is exactly what you want those people working on. So in our challenges, we had accuracy. So a lot of these products, they require very, very tight tolerances. Again, I'll come on to that. Repeatability. We will do projects where it's one person's front room in a luxury house, or we'll do a hotel in Macau that has 6,000 rooms. So you need to be able to repeat that process time after time after time for our products and our components. You need to do it in volume, and you need to do it in speed. So into the business areas where we sell, people have build programs, you get fined if you don't meet target dates, etc. So you have to be able to be confident that you can meet the time to market that's required for your contracts. And again, one of the things we found very early and was touched on earlier is the need for data, and the need for good data so you can target the areas that really add value. So we changed our MRP system. There's an old legacy system to a manufacturing specific ERP system. And that was the very first step of that, around 3 years before we actually implemented any robotics into our factory. Why did we do that? It gave us all the data to highlight all the spots and all the areas where we could target for improvements. For example, where was a polisher in our factory spending the majority of their time? Was it in the main part polishing the main front plate that you'll see, or was it doing the intricate edges of a switch that actually become hidden? So it's really focusing on where you can make process improvements. So implementation. The very first thing we done was we had a clear vision for our project, so we scoped it. And when I say scope it, we went through every single individual area of the business, from manufacturing to finance to IT to sales, etc. So this product that we want to automate, everybody in the business touches or has an effect on that product. So we scoped out, for example, one light switch, and for implementation of that light switch from product design to selling the product, touched 987 touch points in the business. Some of those touch points might have been a 5-minute task. Some of them might be a 20-minute CNC machining. Some of them might be a 3-month marketing development program. But we scoped out every single touch point in that product. Then once we scoped it, we were no experts in automation by any stretch of imagination. We had no expertise. Right. So how did we start? How did we go around? We went around and we looked at manufacturers for the robotics and the equipment, people like ABB or Schneider, etc. Big multinationals who produce these robot arms and then work with smaller companies to implement those. That gives you an idea and a good flavour of where the best areas to go are. We then brought in a consultant who had had some previous experience. to gain and glean the outside experience from his role into our business and to implement that so that our guys had a better understanding. And then lastly, we decided to talk to the university and education establishments around the area. There are 2 big universities around here, both in Brighton, the University of Brighton and Sussex. Both have advanced manufacturing centres, both heavily involved in robotics and robotics in engineering. So for us, it was really going to talk to those guys and saying, here's a challenge, how do we go around it? And gaining the knowledge. So we then went through the process of implementation. And all of the steps you can imagine here, from the design of the robotics and the development, the build of the item. So I'll come on to it in a moment, but our robot wasn't built on site, it was built off site and brought in site. What that meant was that the areas where it was going didn't have any downtime. And it's that's key. So we could have cleared the area and had 3 months downtime while we adjusted and made sure everything was correct, etc. There was no downtime to the business. And then it forces you to look at the layout, the workflow and the build of the factory area and the implementation area, so you get the best workflow processes going through. We went through all of those stages as a business. And finally, and most critically, we talked to other businesses and learned from their experience. And one of the major things we gleaned was service and maintenance. You can have this wonderful machine. If it breaks down and you don't know how to fix it, or if you need to tweak a program in it, where do you go? How do you go around that? Do you have a service contract with an external provider? Do you train your internal staff? So you're implementing robotics to complement them. Do you upskill them so that they can then operate and tweak program machinery? We took a blend of both. We took one of our apprentices, Ryan, who's a toolmaker by his apprenticeship, and upskilled him into robotics as well. So really investing in our people to provide that. So stage 1 of our automation, as we brought it into the business, switch gaps. I want to go back to the image that I showed you and said keep in your mind. Every twin power socket in the UK that you see has 2 switches to turn the power on and off. Now, as we decided to design and develop the most luxurious ones in the world, that cap that sits on top of that rocker switch has to match the same quality of material, the same standard material, the same finish, and the same quality as the metal plate that makes up the majority of the plate. Now, when you look at a pinch point in the business, the plate adds the majority of value. This final touch adds the quality. However, it took 3 times as long to do 1 cap as it did 1 plate. Then you take that over 2 caps, you're taking 6 times as long to do the final touches as you are to do the majority of the product. So where was the pinch point? It was here. When we started off on the project, all of these were done by hand. So they were set up with a jig and a grinding wheel, and someone was pulling it down by hand. That was a skilled worker. It also led to tolerance issues, where we talk about accuracy. And we're starting off with a raw cast cap at the end there, injection casting, which is extremely skilled work. And we're taking it to a ground state or to a polished state. As we found with our products, when you put 2 switch caps next to each other, your eye will pick up 2/1000 of an inch difference. But when you're creating the most luxurious product in the world, you don't want to see 2 caps at different angles. So how do we take the human elements out of that and the skilled engineer? We introduced automation to do that for us. Automation also brings along speed, so we could then run a robot for 24 hours a day if we wanted to, as opposed to a human. And the agility then comes with we can run it for longer hours. We can run it during lunch breaks. It doesn't have holiday, etc. So it gives us real ability and agility to upscale our production. This is our robot. This is it being built off-site. Again, so it's tried, tested off-site, implemented. You can see in the bottom left the grinding processes. So grind it down to 1/1000 inch accuracy. is all verified by touch points in the robotic system, and you can load it with multiple trays where it will run. That one I think carries 50, 60 at a time, switches around, next 50, 60, pick and place. Now you're taking all of those human movements out. What you're not replacing is you're not replacing the finishing process afterwards that same operator would have done. That adds all the value. You're just doing the pre-prep work that they would have done where all the tolerances were. So that was our first step. That robot paid itself back in 9 months, the business. 9 months. There was a time where we implemented a lot of funding from the EU, etc., for that side of things. That's now all disappeared. It's one of the things I speak to Jim about, is that there is funding out there for these sort of projects. We have to go and find it.
That's a great question on that. Was some of the return on the investment based on headcount reduction? On headcount reduction?
No. We actually based it on increased sales and employment people. So part of the funding through Locate Sussex, and we had to employ people to have that funding. So it's a great point, because we've actually increased our staff and we've lost no staff through the implementation of robotics. Okay, so the results of implementing that, the product I touched on, we had accuracy. So you can see there from the product, there is no difference with the naked eye on the levels of the top edge of the cap. The quality, you're getting the same quality product every single time. And you're getting consistency. You're getting consistency where before we'd have a reject rate, say of 5 to 10% of the caps. We're now having a reject rate of less than 2 in 400, I believe it is. So it's much more consistent. And it's very important to touch back on the people side of things. So the morale it gives staff when they're not reworking items, they're actually, the things that they're working on are going through correct first time. It gives them a much greater sense of pride in the work they do. It gives them the opportunity to retrain, and it gives us the opportunity to employ people with new skills. We have apprentices. 2 of our apprentices, one was a regional finalist and one won the Made in the South East Apprenticeship of the Year this year. Both of them have touch points in this project. So it really shows that, and we're bringing new skills into the business, bringing skills we didn't have before that we can then implement and look in different areas to improve our business. Stage 2 of automation was the manufacturing of the metal faceplates. So we realised where the touch point was. The second largest time consuming area is manufacturing the plates. We've moved from a business where 10 years ago we stamped plates and you could stamp a plate in 20 seconds. We're now moving into an area of CNC machining a plate. So instead of a 1.5 mil thick plate, we're now going for a 6 mil thick plate and reducing it down in CNC machining. That's machinings you can do 4 an hour on a CNC machine. So we've gone from being able to do 1,000 in a day to maybe doing 50 in a day maximum. So how do we then automate that process so that we can gain the same efficiencies but in the plate production? A theme that we was looking at earlier we looked at a robot, now we brought in a cobot. And the cobot can do pick and place on a CNC machine. What that allows us to do is to preload trays, the operator to walk away to a second machine, do the same on the second machine or do something more intricate on the second machine and come back and 50 are done at the end of the day. It also gives you the ability then to run overnight, and instantly we've increased our capacity with the same workforce and we're not taking anybody out, we're just redeploying those skills. And that cobot we brought in and we took a different approach where we took one of our apprentices and said, okay, your project for the next year is to learn every single thing about that cobot and to learn how to program it, how to service it, and then how we can maintain that in-house and cutting down on maintenance costs and service contracts. So that was a real win for us. And the results are Agility, reduce setup times. One of the things that anyone that does CNC machining will tell you is you have a long setup time potentially for product to machine something, or a one-off. On this, you don't. You're having set it for one item and then leaving it all day. Longer running times, we can run the machine for 24 hours if we wish, and increase capacity. Therefore, you naturally increase your capacity. And again, exactly the same thing. Same morale boost for our staff. They're learning new skills. We're retraining them and implementing that, and we're giving improvements in our product. Now, I think it's important to touch on the future and the future of where our business is thinking. So new people, new skills. I was always taught that if you do the same thing time and time again and you don't evolve, you don't look outside of new things, someone's going to do it eventually in your place and you're left behind. So it's very, very important for us as a business to invest in that side of things. New business avenues. What has this done? It's allowed us to free up time to do more R&D, to look at new things. The people that actually add the value and have the skills in the business to add those values and design the products, they can now look at new business avenues, work on new projects that we can then implement and put back onto the robotics if we are lucky enough to win them. And that's been really powerful for our business. Process improvements, it's given us the vision to look forward to what we can do to de-risk in our business by automation in manufacturing. Do we look at new technologies or existing technologies with laser, with different methods of cutting, machining, etc.? And you'll notice the theme here, I'm never talking about the USPs of the business, which are the hand-finished elements. Those are always staying hand-finished, and that's what separates us from our competitors. And where would we gain most benefits? And the next point, which has been touched on previously, is AI. So as a business, we're thinking, how do we implement AI into our business? We're already using it to an extent in some of the things we do, but how do we go to that next stage? One of the things that myself and my managing director found very powerful is we attended the Make UK conference. And there was a whole presentation on how AI could change your business, but in ways with marketing and things that you didn't necessarily think of as a manufacturing business. So AI future potential, product design. We look at some of the competitors and where they're going and say, how can we improve on that? So we're looking now at ways where you can give us a spec on the design and the finish, implement it by putting it through an online portal. That online portal will generate you a price. It will generate all the CAD drawings, all the machine programming, all of the invoicing, etc. as it goes through. So all the way through from the customer entering that, or one of the persons in the sales office, you're taking out processes of design, you're taking out processes of programming, you're taking out processes that are daily tasks that add value, but could be automated to add value. And the key thing here is those people are not taken out of the business because it still has to be validated. All of the AI does is gives you an opinion, you have to validate that, and that's what we are looking at, is how do we get to a point where someone is, with the skills is just validating. In manufacturing, part verification, one of the big challenges for us is if we do, say, 1,000 items that are hand finished, people want within tolerance of a colour variation. So how do we bring in photospectrometers online in production to monitor colour? Where you've got products with grain, it's exceedingly difficult, but then you can look at AI for different methods of that. Dimensions has been around for a long time with photo recognition, etc. But how can we implement that on our lines to further verify the products? And the surface finish goes alongside with colour. A lot of our products have mirror finishes or reflective values. As we move into new business ventures and new areas, we're partnering with bigger companies. They're asking the questions that we've never got asked as a small business around reflectiveness on surfaces, and it's coming into building regulations as well. Your colours have to be a certain reflective value, etc. So how do we implement that automatically so that we're just verifying it at the end? And the next stage, if you go back to the cobot, is how do we CNC multi-parts in machining? So how do we get a robot to take an order and recognise it's got to change programs and pick up different plates and different sizes so that we don't have to do tool setups, we don't have to have an operator change the program with that cobot. How do we get to that stage where that is producing maybe 30 different combinations of plates on one run? And we can then run that for much longer over a period of time. How can we use AI to recognise what those programs are, what the plates are, what combinations are needed? And we talked about the caps for the sockets. There are many different styles of switches. Many of you have probably seen the toggle style of switches. How do we implement that into those other components so that we're taking what we've learned as a business from the first stage and implementing it further across other pain points and pinch points in the business? Marketing, and one of the real things that I picked up from the Make UK conference was I listened to a guy, I can't remember his name, Jim, so I apologise, but saying how they had a social media and marketing and design process, and it would take them half an hour to put together and think about what a post would be, etc. They can ask ChatGPT or Gemini to do that, and within 30 seconds you've got it all there written, and all you are doing is verifying what they've written. So you're taking that process out, and that is looking at your data, looking at your market, if you like, you set the parameters, and that's what it does. And that's a real game changer.
Lee from Playdale.
There you are. But it was a real eye-opener for us, where we market our products to an interior designer or market it to someone that's going to be looking at that close. How can we use AI to generate some of that? But not only that, how can we then use AI to generate someone's design for them so they can talk to a chatbot, or they can talk to a Siri or whatever and say, design me a switch plate with one rocker, one switch, it's got control X, it's got control Y, press a button, done. And then you verify. You're taking out a lot of the design process. So those are all the things as an SME that we're looking at, and how do we stay ahead of our competitors? How do we implement this where everyone is still doing it by hand and manually? So, thank you.